All right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the February 12th, 2024 El Dorado Irrigation District Board meeting. May I have roll call, please?
Directors Dwyer, Day, Veerkamp, and Anzini present. Director Osborne is absent. General Manager Abercrombie, General Counsel Polson, and Clerk of the Board Sullivan present.
Thank you. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Do I have a motion to adopt today's agenda?
So moved. Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any public comment on the adoption of today's agenda?
For members of the public wishing to address the board, please refer to page 2 of today's agenda for detailed instructions. Director Dwyer, does not appear there are any members wishing to speak on the adoption of the agenda. I believe we're ready for the vote.
All right, please vote.
Division 2, 3, 4, and 5, voting aye, motion carries.
All right, Jim, any employee recognition today?
Yes, I have one recognition, and later on I'll have a staff report. The recognition, we received a call from a local plumber at an EID's customer's residence stating he needed EID to respond. Our operator, Don Holland, responded to facilitate a water shutoff. The plumber commended Don for his professionalism and outstanding customer service. So again, great job by our staff out in the field. And that concludes the recognition piece.
Thank you. Excellent to hear. All right, is there any public comment on something not on today's agenda that's EID related?
If members of the public would like to address the board, please refer to page 2 of today's agenda for detailed instructions. It does not appear there are any members of the public wishing to speak.
All right, thank you very much, Jenna. All right, back to you, Jim.
Yes, I have Elizabeth Weber that's going to give a good news presentation.
First, Senior Deputy General Counsel for the district. I do have a prepared statement. District staff recently secured a 20-year time extension to achieve full utilization of a critical water right, which is our water right permit 2112. Permit 2112 is an existing water right that allows diversion to storage in multiple reservoirs, as well as annual consumptive use of up to 17,000 acre-feet of water diverted out of Folsom Lake. This water right is what I like to call our drought workhorse, particularly because of those storage rights. It has provided reliable storage supplies some of our recent drought periods to meet our customer demands, even when other water rights are curtailed and unable to be exercised. In late 2020, district staff filed a petition for extension of time with the State Water Resources Control Board, seeking a 20-year extension of the time period authorized under this water right to complete the necessary infrastructure, as well as to put this water right to the full beneficial use that is authorized under the water right. As with many water right matters, there were several parties that filed protests with the Water Board regarding this time extension. However, district staff was able to address their concerns, and those protests were ultimately withdrawn. In light of that, in December of 2023, the Water Board issued an order granting the requested time extension, which allows the district until 2040 to reach the full utilization of this water right in response to the growing water needs of our growing population that we serve. In addition, the district is currently developing a change petition for this same water right to add an upstream point of diversion as well as an additional place of storage, and this will further enhance the utility and flexibility of this important water right. Such efforts are necessary to ensure a resilient future water supply that can meet the needs of our district customers moving forward. And that concludes my report.
Excellent, thank you. Jennifer, do you have anything?
None today, thank you.
All right, Pat?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We took Director Verkamp and I took the opportunity to meet with the director of the water agency and do kind of a meet and greet and get to know you. And it was a productive meeting, I think. An initial reach out to talk, as we're now back on their board. And an outcome of that meeting is we invited Ms. Gao to come and tour our facilities to get a better understanding of some of the issues that we face and to try to deconflict any kind of issues that we have. So hats off to the staff, Dan and company, for arranging a series of tours that will start down here in the low country and then eventually in the summer work up to the Caples and our storage lakes up in the high country. So, end of report.
For the record, Director Dwyer, President Day assigned Director Dwyer as a board member and Director Verkamp alternate appointed with, and of course, approved by the board.
Right, thank you. Ryan?
Yeah, just briefly, attended LAFCO. LAFCO agenda was to select the officers for the upcoming year, and I got returned as the LAFCO chair or president. We went through our audit, which are always fun, and then we did a mid-year budget update, which is in really good shape, and then reviewed a little bit of legislation that at least is starting to come out. So, and then also through CSDA, they did ethics training, and I participated in that as well. So that's done again for 2 years.
Great.
Yep.
Lori?
Just, whoop, okay. I guess I'm the party girl, but I attended the 99th Annual Awards for the installation dinner at Cameron Park for El Dorado County Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors. And it was very well attended, and hats off to the awardees of the recipients, especially the Sierra Nevada Conservancy. So congratulations, a great night.
Great, thank you. All right, do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I move.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any public comment on items on today's consent calendar?
If members of the public would like to address the board, please refer to the detailed instructions on page 2 of today's agenda. Director Day, it does not appear there are any members of the public wishing to comment on the approval of today's consent calendar, moved by Director Anzini and seconded by Director Verkamp. I believe we're ready for the vote.
Dwyer,
Director Dwyer
yeah.
on the second.
I'm sorry?
Director Dwyer was the second. Yeah.
Correction, moved by Director Anzini and seconded by Director Dwyer.
All right, please vote.
Division 2, 3, 4, and 5, voting aye, motion carries.
All right, we will move to our first action item, item 7, our warrant registers. Do I have a motion?
I move approval of action item number 7.
And I will second.
All right. We have a motion and a second to pay our bills. Is there any public comment?
If members of the public would like to address the board on action item number 7, please refer to the instructions on page 2 of today's agenda. President Day, it does not appear any members of the public are wishing to speak on action item number 7. Option 1 moved by Director Anzini and seconded by Director Veerkamp.
All right, please vote.
Division 2, 3, 4, and 5, voting aye, motion carries.
All right, item 8.
Hello.
Good morning.
Morning.
You could kind of lean into that microphone.
Yep. Get better and better every time. All righty. All right. Good morning, members of the board. Liz Carrington, Senior Civil Engineer here with the district. Today I'll be presenting a design contract amendment as well as funding request for the Sly Park Intertie Improvements Project. Previous board actions include award of initial design contract with Waterworks for a little over $1 million. At that time, I did want to note that there were some optional design services that both proposed by Waterworks and the district that we decided to defer at that time until if it was needed for the project. So consequently, the next year there was a contract amendment for easement acquisition services. There's about 24 easements, temporary construction easements and augmented permanent easements that we are negotiating with the homeowners. Also in February of last year, the board approved a contract amendment with Waterworks in a do not to exceed for close to $400,000 for additional pipeline design. The additional pipeline goes north of Highway 50 through Pony Express, as well as there's a Sly Park Hills pipeline from Res A to the tank. Next slide. In April of last year, the board approved another contract amendment for additional geotechnical investigations as well as topographic surveys. The reason for this particular contract amendment was initially we were hoping to go right in the exact same trench, replace exactly where it was. Unfortunately, we had to modify the pipe alignment slightly, and so those services were needed to facilitate the design. And then in October of last year, the board adopted the capital improvement plan, which included this project. Summary of issues. All right, so we are getting close to the end of design for this project. We're about 95%, so we just have a little way to go. Additional engineering services are needed to get to those final stages. Also, staff is requesting additional funding for easement acquisitions as well as capitalized labor to finalize the design and then carry the project into bidding. Next slide. All right, background. This is a refresher for most of you. Sly Park Intertie was originally constructed in 1978 to alleviate water shortages from the 70s drought. Initially, that steel pipeline was installed from Reservoir 1 to Reservoir A, and then the pump station was constructed in '93 in response to the Cleveland fire so we can put water from Res A up to Res 1. So that created that bidirectional flow. Unfortunately, due to the emergency nature of the pipe construction, this is non-standard pipe. And it had to be taken out of services about 10 years ago due to leaks and pipe failures. Next slide. All right, the overall project objective is to reinstate that bidirectional flow between our two reservoirs, Reservoir 1 and Reservoir A. This pipeline will provide system redundancies for drought, wildfire, such as Caldor Fire, unfortunately, outages, and water quality considerations. This also allows Reservoir A to be taken offline for maintenance and repairs. Unfortunately, we don't quite have that functionality right now. Also, this provides long-term energy and capital savings. All right, this screenshot, it's just an overall view of our pipe alignment. Above Highway 50, we start at Pony Express. That was the additional, excuse me? Oh, perfect. Great. Thank you, Jennifer. All righty. So the pipeline starts on Pony Express, north of Highway 50, comes along underneath the highway, traverses over 24 properties cross-country, over a few grade changes, I'll just put it that way, continues on to Reservoir A, and then we also have a slight leg down at the bottom. That's the slip lining for Sly Park Hills. Staff is requesting a contract amendment for additional engineering services. Some of those services include thrust block design. So we typically have our standard thrust block design. It takes quite a bit of footprint. Unfortunately, with the terrain, our easements, we'll need to do some specialty thrust block design to try to accommodate those space considerations. Also, we'll need a second Caltrans encroachment permit. The initial alignment had a more direct shot underneath the highway. During design, we looked at potentially reinstating that, but it's not underneath any roadway or anything that we can maintain, and so we decided to loop around and go under Ridgeway Drive. So we'll need a second encroachment permit so that we can properly abandon the existing pipeline. Also, we did need to realign the pipeline in consideration of existing facilities. We do have some septic leach lines that we want to make sure we have proper clearance from. We'll have some modifications.
Called out in the presentation about how the traditional method won't work, so we need to redesign those. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So the pipeline itself is restrained. We do have excessive pressures and excessive grade changes. And so as a district, we typically have a more belt and suspenders way of designing our pipelines, and we have restraints as well as thrust blocks to make sure we don't have any unfortunate incidents in the field. So our typical thrust block design does have, it's pretty much a large chunk of concrete that pushes against the soil so that, if there's any pushing and pulling against those gaskets, it'll stop right there at that concrete block. We just don't have the space with the elevation, the easements, in order to accommodate that large footprint of concrete block. It's about the size of a small vehicle. So we'll need to do some specialty design with some steel reinforcement to try to get that same thrust constraint, but in that smaller footprint. Okay, you're welcome. Alrighty, we'll also have some modifications at Reservoir A. So right now we do have auxiliary fuel tanks for our existing generators, and so we want to have that same functionality here. Unfortunately, this is a facility that we have power outages as well as pretty intense winter storms, and so that emergency fuel storage will give us about 3 days of operation at the pump station. Also, we will be extending the fiber optic line from the existing Sly Park Intertie pump station to the new location. We'll be demolishing the existing SBI pump station. This will give us the ability to repurpose that building, so might as well take advantage of the facilities that we have. Also adding flow meters and motor actuated valves to the Camino conduit in Pleasant Oak, Maine. This will help with our water reporting, water loss, whatnot, so just really refine our numbers that are leaving Reservoir A. And lastly, engineering services, we are looking to pre-purchase some of the long lead time items, generators, MCCs, motor control, as well as programming logic control equipment. Alrighty, so this slide I wanted to represent kind of our running total for the design contract. I know it seems like staff has come back a few times, but I did want to note that we negotiated the additional engineering services for a little less than $200,000. That proposed total of a little over $2 million, that is still within 6% of the engineer's construction estimate. Industry standard is between 6 and 10%, so even with the additional design services to date, we are still right on target with where we like to see our design fees. Staff as well as Bender Rosenthal is progressing with easement agreement negotiations. These are conditioned upon the completion of the environmental review. So these are just agreements to eventually record easements for temporary construction as well as augmented permanent easements. This compensation will need to be placed in escrow, which is why I'm here today. And then the easements will be recorded and compensation will be released if construction is authorized by the board.
Difficulties with any of the property owners?
We've had some very great discussions. I'll just say that. We're progressing through and we're just trying to be very open and transparent with the homeowners. There are some concerns. We are not the only utility going through the area, and so we get a lot of the questions of, we've seen these types of terms with other agencies, and so can we match that? And Elizabeth Leeper and I have been working together to try to just be very fair, equitable, and be very transparent as we're working through that. So I think we're making some good headway, and I think we'll be able to sign all of those agreements within the next couple of weeks. So, yep. So today's funding request, staff is requesting $199,724 for Waterworks contract amendment, about $200,000 for easement acquisition compensation, and $75,000 for capitalized labor, for a total funding request of $474,724. Overall funding, as a reminder, we do have $750,000 coming from the American Rescue Plan Act. That is for design services, and we've been working through El Dorado County to try to recoup some of those funds for design. Also, we have a $10 million grant from the Urban and Multi-Benefit Drought Relief Program. Brian and I have been engaging with the state folks and to see if there's additional monies available. So that conversation is ongoing, and I'll report back if there's any good news. And then the remainder of the project will be funded by a 2024 bond. I did want to note too, so the existing CIP planned expenditures is about $31 million for construction. The updated engineer's estimate is about $35 million. So we are seeing some increases, thus the conversation with our state friends to see if we can augment that $10 million grant. Schedule. This month, the goal is to finalize the design and get a qualified list of contractors. The project will be bid next month and into April. Staff anticipates returning to the board early April for environmental certification, and then late April for potential approval of the construction contract. Construction will occur May of this year through December of the following year. Board options. Option 1, approve a contract amendment to Waterworks Engineers in the not-to-exceed amount of $199,724 for additional engineering services, and authorize additional funding in the amounts of $200,000 for land acquisitions and $75,000 for capitalized labor, for a total funding request of $474,724 for the Slide Park Intertie Improvements Project, project number 21079. Staff's recommendation is option 1.
President Day, I'll move option 1.
I'll second. Comment? As you know, I'm a big proponent of this project. I believe that it builds in redundancy in our system and will help in times to keep the supply to our customers reliable and safe. So thank you for your work.
Any other board comment or question?
Yes, sir.
Is there any public comment?
If members of the board if members of the public would like to address the board on action item number 8, please refer to the instructions on page 2 of today's agenda. President Day does not appear. Are there any members of the public wishing to speak on action item number 8, option 1, moved by Director Veerkamp and seconded by Director Dwyer?
All right, please vote.
Division 2, 3, 4, and 5 voting aye.
All right, thank you, Liz.
Thank you.
Excuse me, motion carries.
All right, now we'll be moving to closed session, and I'll make an estimate that we will be back no sooner than, I can't read that clock, wait, 9:40, and, but we may be back later.
So this session will be, I'm sorry, this session will be shut down. However, we will reopen a new Zoom session once the board returns after closed session.
And if I could just make the verbal announcement that I'm required to make under the Brown Act, that the board will be meeting in closed session as per the agenda listed under closed session item A. And thank you very much for that time estimate. That's right with what I was thinking, so.
All right, we're back from closed session at, I don't know what, 9 minutes to 10. Council, do we have anything to report?
President Day, the board met in closed session to discuss closed session matter A with its property negotiators. It provided direction but took no reportable action, and that concludes my report.
All right, thank you. And do we have any assignments?
Not this time,
All right, meeting adjourned,
at 9:52.
9:52.
Goodbye.